becomes very distraught and upset, and she goes into this cave and she hides herself in this cave. At this point, there is no light in the world. The world has been cast into darkness. And it's a very bad situation. And everybody becomes extremely aware of what's going on there. It's like the end of the world, essentially. And so the humans get together and try to figure out what can be done to rectify the situation. And they come up with a plan. There's this old woman shaman. She's very vulgar, walks around naked all the time, making jokes, singing, and she's devises a plan. And so they do this. They go outside the cave and they start playing these, hitting these noise makers, musical instrument things, noise makers, and making some music, and she starts singing and dancing and telling hilarious, slightly ribald jokes, and just putting on this performance. And Amaterasu-omi-kami, when she went into that cave, she forgot who she was. She forgot she was the goddess of the Great Eastern Sun. She just, in her grief and her, oh, woe is me, and the world is a horrible place, and I can't take it anymore. She forgot she was all light and beauty, and she just forgot who she was. Which is kind of like us. We're like the ones, we're like Amaterasu-omi-kami. We're the goddess of the gracious sun. We're the inheritors of the gracious sun. We're the holders of the gracious sun. We've forgotten what we are. We've gone into this cave. We've gone into our cocoon. And, no light getting in, no sound getting in. And we've forgotten who we are. We've forgotten our gentleness and our bravery. And we're just feeling sorry for ourselves. So they start to dance and sing, and she begins to hear this. Kind of like St. George singing to the dragon. She hears this song. And she becomes curious. And she decides to look out of her cave and see what's going on. What's going on out there? What's happening? Something's going on. I'm curious. And she peeks out of her cave, and the shaman lady holds a mirror to her face. So when she peeks out, she sees herself. And then she recognizes who she is. She'd forgotten, but it's shown to her true nature at that point. And she comes out enough of the cave at that point. And in Japan, they have all these sacred ropes. They're these made out of paper. They're in these little zigzag. It's a sacred rope. And they cover the entrance of the cave with a sacred rope so that Amaterasu-omi-kami cannot go back in her cave. And then there's this big celebration and singing and dancing, and the world is restored to its true glory. So I don't know. That's just the story of Amaterasu-omi-kami. But it's our story. So, It's this kind of curiosity and interest in the sights, sounds, smells, tastes, mind consciousness. It's that it can awaken us. It can draw our interest and our curiosity and allow us to come out of our cave, our cocoon of conceptual thoughts and tension, and making ourselves into a piece of wood can begin, but it's kind of like a little bit of a process of gentleness, curiosity, openness, receptivity, vipassana. Vipassana, we just go out, right? Vipassana, we just go out and there's the world, and then we begin to take an interest, a greater interest in what's going on in the world in terms of sights and sounds and smells. And that's how we come out of our cave, It's that sort of radiation without a radiator, and that interest. And then those things wake us up. The different kinds of sense consciousness can wake us up instead of we bound ourselves with a certain way of, not being interested in that, not being interested in that, leaving our home, leaving our castle, leaving the town and go out into the world where the iron crosses grow. Anyway, there's a lot of stories like that in different cultures, very similar to that. The story of Amaterasu. Oh, I was going to tell you about Issei. So, 90 of us with Trungpa Rinpoche went on this trip to Japan. And it was fantastic. The whole trip was unbelievable, but in many ways, the highlight was the trip to Issei. Issei is where they have this shrine to the goddess of the Great Eastern Sun. And it's the shrine of the emperor. And it's the national shrine of Japan. It's the most important shrine by far. They got a lot of shrines, a lot of important shrines. Said that the reason they picked that place was because there had never been warfare. Every place in Japan, every piece of ground you could look at had been fought over in blood and murder, except this spot. So I missed the main tour because I was on duty with Trungpa Rinpoche, and he couldn't go. He was too sick to go. But then the next day, everybody else left town, but I was fortunate. The Sakyong didn't get to go either. I forget exactly what he did, but so Bob Halper and me, Bomb, at that time, gave like 4 of us a little tour of Issei. And Bob had spent a lot of time in Japan, knew the joint. So he was a great tour guide. Not to mention he was a rather entertaining guy, but he and I were very good friends anyway. He says, put your hand on the cypress tree. And it was all cypress trees, man. It was just ungodly amount of cypress trees, beautiful trees. You put your hand on the cypress tree, and it was like the cypress tree was plugged into an electrical outlet because it was humming. It was just like, it was no way you could say that was not happening, even though it was impossible. It was was impossible, and yet it was happening. There were no two ways about it. That tree was buzzing. Oops. Unbelievable. It was the dangest thing I've ever experienced. But the whole place was just had that quality of sacredness, aliveness, emptiness, bliss and emptiness. I don't know. It was alive. It was a powerful spot. It was a spot of power. It was half in heaven, half on earth. You know, it was the realm of the gods. You know, there. A lot of wisdom dripping off those trees and everything else. I guess that's it.